Morning, everybody. How are we doing today? Today we're going to discuss a couple of fun things that I've found lately and learning about. First, I want to touch on the jump blues again for a second. And it's been quite a revelation. You can read about something, but when you really understand something, it kind of can really change how you feel about the comprehension of it. And hearing Jordan and Bull Moose Jackson and Roy Brown and that early rhythm and blues rock and roll stuff from the 40s into the 50s, which really sets a template for your Fats Dominoes, Little Richard, Chuck Berry's. But I mean, it's really exciting hearing that whole continuous extension of the music and how synonymous and interchangeable jazz, blues, rhythm and blues, and rock and roll were at a point. They were all mixed together in a milieu of sound that obviously separates over time. But it was just a really interesting mix of exciting music that you could buy nothing riskier when you went to a record store than buying that new Jump Blues record. And it's clear it's where Elvis and Buddy Holly and Bill Haley, and Eddie Cochran, all those cats got their influence from. Without any shadow of a doubt, they were listening to that early black rhythm and blues rock and roll. And I just don't think I recognized really myself how interchangeable rhythm and blues and rock and roll were at a certain point. And it's something you hear all the time, but when you really hear it for yourself, I feel it really changes things. A record I've talked about quite a lot lately, but I want to touch on again. This is Louis Jordan. I mean, what you're hearing there, it's the Stray Cats, it's Brian Setzer Orchestra, of course. But what's so exciting about this record, and I was sitting in one of my gigs last Sunday with a jazz pianist who would come in, who I've seen perform several times. Really broad repertoire, really knows his stuff. He can play boogie woogie, he can play stride, he can play, I mean, all the different elements. And as we sat there talking about and listening to this record at the end of the night, just kind of playing it for a while, there's really no record I can think of that more strongly illustrates the past and the future at the same time. And I mean, Louis Jordan again, the black church, the blues, jazz music, rock and roll music, it's really all present in this. And we sat there talking, listening to the record, how you can hear Fats Waller, Armstrong, Count Basie, you can hear Cab Calloway, you can hear all this, all the progenitors, all the early influences in him, clearly. You hear all of it. But you can also absolutely hear everything that comes after. And I've often said the Beatles are the greatest bottleneck in music history, where everything before the Beatles emulate to some degree, and then everything after the Beatles has Beatles in it. And this might be a challenger to that crown of just a time where everything that's before is condensed into their sound. I mean, jazz is still present throughout this. Ain't nothing here but us chickens. It's body. It's boisterous. It's exuberant. It's joyful. It's celebratory. I mean, you can just really see in Louis Jordan the energy and the excitement. Let the good times roll, which I mean is a standard. Is you is or is you ain't my baby. I mean, you can hear everything from Amy Winehouse to Cab Calloway in that. I mean, it's Choo 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 Boogie, Knock Me a Kiss is fantastic. Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying. Oh man, Beware, Brother, Beware. It's without a question one of the most exciting, one of the most fun crossroads in music history. And I personally want to elevate Louis Jordan to his rightful place. And as great as Chuck Berry and Little Richard and Bo Diddley, Fats Domino, as great as Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington, Armstrong, Count Basie, Louis Jordan is in that echelon, that category of influence and importance. And unlike the bebop and the hard bop that we celebrate, and rightfully so, it's great stuff, that stuff had zero commercial viability. I mean, it sold very regionally, very niche. Jazz really, I mean, the Bossa Nova was really jazz's last gasp of real popularity. There was records here and there that would still sell marginally well, but Bill Armstrong's Hello Dolly in '62, I think it was. The Brubeck Timeout, Kind of Blue, Miles. These were the last gasps of real commercial, viable, mainstream jazz. And there's no question that the labels that embraced this R&B rock and roll development were the labels that survived this time frame. And a couple in particular jump to mind. King, out of Cincinnati/Chicago, they really embrace this transitional period, and Big J McNeely's doing stuff there. You see Hank Ballard and the Midnighters, Clyde McFadden and the Dominoes. You see James Brown's earliest recordings at 58, 59, and James Brown's earliest recordings are like Please, Please, Please. It's still very much in the vernacular. There's not this giant leap that you get with Cold Sweat and Papa's Got a New Bag that comes down the road early 60s. He's still stuck in the sound of everything else around him. Rhythm and blues, rock and roll. And so King stayed a viable entity for a number of years into the 70s because of that embrace of early rhythm and blues, rock and roll. The Imperial label does some of the stuff. The specialty label that signed Little Richard. The Imperial had Fats Domino, and his records sold really well. The other two I really want to mention is Chess, Cadet, Argo, that family of labels in Chicago. They embraced this music, obviously with Bo Diddley, and they were successful for quite a while. But it's really Atlantic Records that, with their 1200 sequence, which was pretty jazz, experimental, elements of the avant-garde, Charles Mingus, Pithecanthropus erectus, Ornette Coleman's early work, excuse me, some of John Coltrane's recordings were at Atlantic. But it's Atlantic Records that really dives into rhythm and blues with Ruth Brown, Laverne Baker, eventually Aretha, Ray Charles, I can't think of their name, the Clovers, the Drifters. I mean, Atlantic Records really embraces the rock and roll, rhythm and blues transition, and they launched the 8000 series, which is quite different from the 1200 series with the Coltrane's and Minguses and Colemans. And the 8000 series has some of the most incredible rhythm and blues of the late 50s, early 60s. And so it's just really interesting watching this transition happen and how fast and rapidly we go from Louis Jordan and his cohorts to the Beatles and the Stones and then Led Zeppelin and the Animals and all that British wave of American black music coming from those British white kids that the American audiences scooped up, not even realizing how black it was on some level. And of course, Elvis tapped into that earlier, doing black music. Raised in Memphis, he knew the vernacular and the language of the black music, and it's inescapable, the influence of Black America on the entire lexicon of modern pop music, modern rhythm and blues, modern pop music. It's all stems from the blues, the black church, the celebratory overcoming of a people struggling in the wilderness. It's just, I mean, I just find it so exciting. I really do. I've been enjoying playing it at my gigs and having this bridge between jazz and rhythm and blues, jazz and rock and roll, rhythm and blues and rock and roll. It's all this incredible, interesting gumbo that you can hear everything that came before in this music, like I said, and everything that's to come, you can hear it as well. So it's really, it's hard to put in words how revelatory and fantastic and exciting I find this stuff. So next I want to talk to you briefly about a fun Leo Parker recording I found on the Chess label. And Chess probably bought this from somewhere. And Leo's one of the great baritone players of the 40s and 50s. Sadly kind of a real overlooked figure today. His Blue Note recordings probably keep him on the landscape to some degree, but even those are fairly peripheral Blue Note recordings. His work at Savoy is fantastic in the late 40s, being part of the bebop scene with Parker and Navarro and all those cats doing their thing at Savoy in the late 40s. Parker's a fantastic, boisterous player, great tonality, great expression and energy and pulse. He's a fun, blues-driven narrator. He tells a story. And Blue Sails, What Gets in Your Eyes. I mean, what's great about all these great jazz players is the content of the song didn't necessarily matter. It was just chord changes to express yourself upon. But what I really actually enjoyed on this record was this bonus track that they tack on the end, Sahib Shihab, which is really fantastic. It's a moody piece, and I've actually been playing this at my gigs some lately too. And I do think the Sahib Shihab song, another great baritone player who also played the flute and the alto. If I remember, I think that song is on his discontinued Argo LP. So they were just kind of putting some baritone stuff together here to fill the record out. But it's just a great piece. Some real moody baritone. And this song's of a little later vintage, of course. The earlier stuff's from the late 40s, early 50s, and this one's I think from early 60s, but fantastic stuff all the same. I love when a baritone gets into that guttural honk almost. Beautiful stuff. Etta James, I mean, we all know Etta James from At Last, a staple of most weddings. But Etta had a lot of hits on the R&B charts in the 50s into the 60s. And her work here at Chess is pretty fucking outstanding. And you kind of lose her in the crowd at times of all the great jazz, blues, crossover singers, R&B singers. And At Last kind of really stands above her body of work, but not really deservedly. I mean, she had a lot of hits on the R&B charts, and the amount of gospel in her, the amount of she could whoop you with a shoe in a frying pan if she needs to in her attitude. It's gritty, it's powerful, it's dynamic. It has a guttural power that's tangible and electric and makes your hair stand up at times. Stop the Wedding's fantastic. Somebody's Got a Hold on Me. I mean, really, this entire collection is a great way to get into her body of work. And all of her cadet recordings from late 60s, early 70s are fantastic. They're just really great recordings that really emulate the Chicago sound, that blues, jazz stew that was very crossbred and always was. And she's just a great expresser of sorrow and love and love lost. I'm a huge fan of Etta James, and it's only growing as I dive deeper into her body of work. So another guy that stands at the crossroads of jazz and blues and jump blues is Memphis Slim. And I've talked about Memphis Slim quite a bit over the years. I've always loved his song Mother Earth. I mean, there's a couple songs on this greatest hits. Feeling Low is fantastic. Really got the Guess I'm a Fool. I mean, his ability to, I mean, Mike Willie Dixon wrote some of the liner notes on this one. And I was playing this at the bar the other night with my friend as well, kind of at the end of the night. Everybody had kind of gone home, and we're just kind of sitting there listening to some stuff and having a beverage. And Memphis can be loungy, he can be body, he can be bluesy and gut bucket, he can be your ballroom singer. His ability to inflect and touch on all these aspects is part of the interesting crossroads that we were at here, where everything kind of was a go. You could try all different vernaculars. A great piano player with lots of boogie woogie in his style, and a lot of rumble and a lot of excitement. Again, just full of energy and life, and it never ceases to amaze me how the black music of America is such a celebratory, fun, overcoming expression of joy and having fun in spite of sorrow. And it's the white America who makes the Nine Inch Nails and Nirvana and the Korn and the self-loathing and the guilt and the hate. I mean, being the oppressor of the people does come with a heavy burden to bear. And even if you don't recognize where that guilt's coming from, I think it's still a jacket you have to wear at times. This next song is, I guess I'm a Fool. It's just a fantastic. I mean, just feel how much of a fool he is for being in love with you still. 1950, probably recorded in Chicago. He came out of the south, out of Memphis, obviously. And Willie Dixon played with him for years. He played with Big Bill Broomsey in Chicago for quite a while. I mean, listen to that. And it sounds like Big Joe Williams almost, or even Jimmy Rushing. He's got the blues shouter. And they often have this wonderful vocal accompaniment that gives it a hint of gospel, but also a hint of kind of a poppiness and accessibility. There's also a hint of the cotton fields, of the work songs and the moans and the groans of the history's so alive. It's so right there in the music. The bassy type kind of touch, the minimalism. I mean, it's just a crazy time where this crossroads, and again, you could hear Adele inflecting a lot of this today. You can hear modern neo soul and some of that Sharon Jones era stuff doing the similar Amy Winehouse. I mean, those characters all kind of mine. All that Daptone label stuff has a lot of this kind of feel to it. Organic and obviously recorded analog with the old instruments and the real players. It's just such good stuff. It really is. Guess I'm a fool. Last time I want to talk to you about a small label out of Chicago, late 40s, early 50s, called Apollo. Me and Scott Baldwin were talking about Apollo records recently, and it's one of those kind of overlooked, forgotten labels. They did quite a bit of 78 RPM stuff, kind of like United Records out of Chicago, another small label. Apollo has this fantastic session here with Coleman Hawkins at the lead, with Dizzy Gillespie, Oscar Pettiford, Don Bias, Max Roach, Bud Johnson, and Clyde Hart. I mean, that's all-star stuff. And this would be synonymous with some of the early Clef stuff, some of the Savoy stuff, late 40s, early 50s. Still some elements of the old swing in there, but it's still got a real modernity to it. Exciting players throughout this recording. And this was Apollo 101. Apollo 102 has Georgie Auld at the helm. And I'm a big fan of Georgie Auld. He was actually from Toronto, Canada, my hometown. And Auld played with Artie Shaw, with Benny Goodman, Bunny Berrigan. He played with Buddy Rich at times, Bunny Berrigan. I mean, he plays with a lot of who's who of the swing era. But here Apollo has recruited him, and he's playing with Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Shavers, Ben Webster and Coleman Hawkins. I mean, what a sax section. Ben Webster, Coleman Hawkins, and Georgie Auld. You have two of the three greatest centers of all time right there, and Georgie Ald's filling the chair that Lester Young should fill. Israel Crosby, High White, Bill Rowland round out the session. I mean, listen to that. Dizzy. The fire's there, man. Great session led by Georgie Auld. So these are the first two Apollos, 101 and 102. These are tough records to come by. Scott Baldwin said that. Bob Costner from Delmark spent years trying to track some of these records down. Of course, he didn't have the internet at that time. Number 103 is a Sir Charles Thompson record, which I can't find anywhere right now, internet included. 104 is the great Illinois Jackette. And again, Jackette's a figure that should be so much bigger in today's collectors' opinions. Like Coleman Hawkins, Jackette's that bridge to Sonny Rollins and John Coltrane, along with guys like Dexter Gordon. I'm a huge fan of Illinois Jackette. He comes out of the Texas tenor scene, bluesy, rhythm and blues inflected sound. Leo Parker actually shows up here, the baritones we just talked about. Joe Newman, bassist trumpet player from the 50s and 40s, was here. Sir Charles Thompson is on the piano. Shadow Wilson and Al Lucas round up the session. The Vogue label in France reissues a lot of this Apollo stuff in the 50s. But again, another really rare 10-inch on Apollo. And then last but not least, another great Texas tenorman, Arnett Cobb, number 105. And I think this is the end of the series for the Apollo 10-inch. Like I said, there's 78 RPM stuff, which some of that stuff gets called into LPs. I think Delmark actually bought this, if I remember. They bought the United stuff. Walter Buchanan, George Rhodes, George Jones, Dave Page, Al King. Cool cover. I want to do another episode coming up at some point about Burt Goldblatt. His album covers are so incredible, and they're so ubiquitous across the jazz landscape in the early 50s, and they impact every label. And they impact Reed Miles, what he's going to do at Blue Note coming up in the late 50s, early 60s. They're going to impact David Stone Martin. I think Burt Goldblatt is one of the greatest graphic designers in music history. His impact was so broad and so complete that even small labels like this were doing things that Goldblatt had kind of penned, for lack of a better word. And like I said, Goldblatt's impact on so many labels, it's over a dozen labels, and his stylings in the early 50s take jazz from boring advertisings on the covers of labels and other artists on the label to artwork. He single-handedly changes the graphic design of the nation, and jazz was the cutting edge of graphic design in the music industry at that time, being the most exploratory and interesting music being made. There was no rock and roll, there was no R&B, there was no punk, there was no electronic. In 1949-50, jazz was this most experimental, most cutting edge music. And so a lot of this stuff is kind of crossroads stuff that I've just found so compelling and so interesting. And what happens with the trunk of the music at this point is all these branches start shooting off. The bebop innovation, the hard bop innovation, the cool jazz on the West Coast and cool bop, its counterpart, the modal systems of the 50s, the avant-garde free jazz movement that's to come, the third stream ideas that are happening, which kind of is synonymous with some of the cool jazz that's happening. I mean, I honestly think Miles Davis' Birth of the Cool, Mulligan, Collins, those guys, that record's really more of a third stream record than a cool record. Brubeck's cool. Chet Baker's cool. The Birth of the Cool session has some of those same players and some of that same musical diversity, instrumentation diversity, and you can hear some of the cool in Birth of the Cool, but it's really the birth of the third stream, which is grafting some of that European composition into the innovation and inspiration and emoting of jazz. And when you hear stuff like the Modern Jazz Quartet in the early 50s into the 60s, there's no question that Birth of the Cool was a real impetus, and guys like Mulligan and Conitz and their compositional acumen really pushed the third stream and brought some of that European sound into the jazz vocabulary and lexicon. So, I mean, but a lot of those branches were very short-lived. They shot off the tree and died and withered. And because of that, those records did not sell well. Because of that, those records are rare and expensive and collectible. And so because of that, the modern jazz community, collector community, record community, audiophile community, they all celebrate that stuff that was rare and thus expensive and thus makes them cool for having it. And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of it, but it's just the further you get down, the further you climb up the tree, I guess I'll say, the more you realize that a lot of those branches aren't branches you can stand on. You can't use them to pull yourself up. A lot of those branches are small, weak limbs that you can't even build a nest on those branches. They're very small, fragile little timbers. And that main trunk that's continued to today, that's such a strong branch. And you can see the tree really of the black church, the blues, the jazz. It really has these small branches shooting off of it. And then it's R&B and rock and roll that are still that main trunk. And those two start to separate in the late 50s and the 60s. And by 65, 70, jazz, rhythm and blues, rock and roll, soul music all feel very disparate and varied and far away from each other. But there's no question that it's all rooted in the same foundations, which is black music. And so I make some fun stuff there. I got some more fun stuff to show you. I've just been so busy with DJing. My calendar's been really busy lately. Appreciate you all for watching and supporting the channel. Please hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you want to support the channel, hit Patreon, hit YouTube thanks. PayPal's available. There's a link in the description below. Appreciate you all for watching. And keep playing that music, keep diving that music, and never stop exploring. Never stop experiencing the varied conditions that the music has to offer. Because I think if you get too stuck on one branch, it will collapse under your weight eventually. You need to recognize how big the tree is and how strong some of the branches are and how exciting all that connectivity can be. Because I know I've enjoyed the ride immensely. It's been such a fun experience grasping all this broadness. So y'all have a great day. We'll talk to y'all soon. Check out those Apollo records. They're tough to come by, no question about it. And if any of you stumble on the Sir Charles Thompson 10-inch, please let me know. I sometimes hesitate to share stuff I'm collecting till I've found it all. So I don't want to create competition for the record I'm trying to find still. But I don't think Sir Charles Thompson's going to create too much competition out there for me. So, again, if you see that 10-inch anywhere, please let me know, because I do want to finish that little discography off. There's a few things I want to share right now, but I'm not going to because I'm still collecting, and I don't want to create more competition for myself by exposing people to how great this stuff is. So anyway, we'll talk to y'all soon. I'll try to get my next episode up a little quicker this time. I didn't realize it had been 3 weeks. It's just been so much going on, a lot of traveling with my gigs, just really taking up my time, plus the coffee shop, and my social calendar's kind of been more busy as well. So, but anyway, we're doing good. We're blessed. Life is a wonderful experience and expression. Hope you all are doing really well. We'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.